Alright. The patch notes are officially out for Update 30, and we need to actually talk about these because this is insane and it is awesome. So first off, we've got everything we expected. Red Petal Bastion is coming, Dread Cellar is coming. Red Petal Bastion's in Northeast Glenumbra, and Dread Cellar is in Northern Blackwood. Normal version and a veteran version, hard modes for each of their 3 bosses. So, same sort of thing we've been seeing recently with all of the other recent dungeons like Stonethorn and I'm forgetting what the other new DLC dungeon was called. Flames of Oblivion, I believe. The Black Drake and Cauldron DLC. This has been kind of our new standard, which is great. New unique item sets, new Undaunted monster masks, and achievements that give body and face markings, mementos, several titles, and unique housing items. So all fun stuff to hunt for. Our sets have come out. We have Scorian's Feast, which hasn't changed since we talked about it last, so I'm not going to go too much into it. I still think this is a really good set. Rush of Agony also hasn't changed. I think that this is also going to be a really good set. And that it's going to be fun on, like, werewolves as a solo build, or just as a disgusting thing to do in PvP. Crimson Oath's Rive. This is the new Alkosh that I talked about last time. That's a darn good shred number. Crimson Oath. This is meant to kill Alkosh as a tank set. It's just that's straight up the goal here. They don't want us running Alkosh anymore, so they're just giving us a better tool. Because Kark Maw of Lorkosh. Why would we ever need to go to Maw of Lorkosh, apparently? Okay. Yeah, so Crimson Oath's Rive is the new Alkosh. Because that's a thing that they want. So, Magma Incarnate. My Magma Incarnate still works, is still the same. I don't think my thoughts on this have really changed at all. Grants minor courage and minor resolve to when you cast a single target heal. I still think this has the same niche use case that it had before. So, not really going to say too much more on that. Probably good for healers and or tanks as a way to try and run another buff set besides Claws of Ylnakren. Though there might also be another set that we look at for that sort of thing. But we'll get to that in a minute. So then we have Red Petal Bastion's Thundercaller. Dealing damage of fully charged heavy, calls a bolt of lightning. This set looks awesome, and I want to go around and play with it. But I think it's the same thing as Deadlands. It's cool, but it's probably not all that strong. Grizzly Gourmet is the same that it was. This 5-piece got cut down from what it was in the preview that we looked at last night. But this is the same. And I still think it's good. I think it looks like a fun set to mess around with and eat sweet rolls. This is the same. This is the same thing, has the same problem I had with it before, because it's, words. It has the same problem I mentioned last video on these, and I'm kind of trying to breeze past these because I went more in depth on them in the video that went up last night. So, Locking attack grants Realm Shaper for 15 seconds. Yeah, Major Maime's good. Having another way to source Major Maim is good. We already have Bonnies and Void Bash and Lady Thorn to do this as well. So I don't know that we are necessarily going to need this, but it's not bad. Prior Theric is a cool AoE set. Magma Incarnate. Da-da-ba-da. New toys. New titles. Waking Flame has 2 motifs. Soulzon can be obtained from the Rockgrove weekly quest. And the style item can be obtained from Rockgrove bosses. Black Fin, as well as the style item, can be gotten from the Blackwood Delves. Okay. Some pretty big PvP changes. Existing No-CP Cyrodiil and Imperial City campaigns will also now prohibit proc sets. Expanded the number of sets from the original grouping that worked during the initial test. I'm not going to go over this too much because I don't care enough about PvP. And they will disabling Volendrung and no CP, no proc campaigns. I don't know how much of a complaint that is. I know that there was a lot of complaints about proc damage being cheap. And all of that. I don't know whether that's good or whether this is good or bad. They added 3 new rewards for the worthy sets. These two are like, these two feel very like anti-Zerg tactics. Dark Convergence, lets you pull everyone in and get a snare that then explodes, increasing damage. Apparently designed to be good for killing large groups. Because you combine this with some hard CC and just go to town. Because you snare and pull them, lock them down with, like, Mask of Fear or something like that, and then they all blow up. Dealing magic damage and additional magic damage to enemies within 3 meters of the center, increasing the damage by 10% for each target hit. So it's basically, it's a thing this might also actually be just a really good bomber set as well. Who knows? I don't. Plague Break. This is an anti-cleanse set. If the plague is removed early, it explodes, infecting enemies within 8 meters of the carrier, dealing disease damage. The explosion deals an additional 10% for enemies hit. So you get a shot on someone in a group, and if they get purged, it blows up and deals a ton of damage. And then Hrothgar's Chill. Stunning or immobilizing causes a burst of frost magic, applying chilled and dealing 26 of their total physical and spell resist as frost damage to themselves and enemies within 8 meters. I wonder if this actually works on PvP mobs, or because it's worded as physical and spell resist and not armor, it only works against players. That's something to try out, because if this works against PvE mobs, that could be pretty high damage. Because I think the reason it's physical and spell resist, not their total armor, is so that you can't do it against PvE stuff. Interaction priority changes. Special problem expecting to interact with things even when they're surrounded by Jubilee Cakes or Sorcerer Pets. Yes! You can't lock me out with a Jubilee Cake anymore! Yay! New homes. New furnishings. Prologue update. 32 prologue quest. So this is the prologue to the new zone. Which I'm going to bet is going to take us to Skingrad. because that is the last place we knew both Lyris and Sai were headed. So I'm guessing we're going to meet up with them. Template characters, etc., etc., etc. Companion animations. Rockgrove, Basques and Snakes now works right. And perfected items you get more perfected items for hard mode. And Base will now play appropriate interrupt animations when she is interrupted. Yay! Devil Flies will no longer appear in Blackwood. Sets of several Blackwood quest armor items to match their armor. Okay, they finally fixed that thing. So, when Blackwood originally came out, there were a couple of sets that granted like a heavy frostbite chest or a medium frostbite head. So you would have frostbite in weights that weren't what you wanted for frostbite. That said, you might not want that anymore, and we'll get to that in a minute. Couple of antiquities things. Can now get married at the Shrine of Mara in Solitude, so if you want a scenic wedding in Solitude, you can do that. Black Rose equipment box can now be opened by characters of any level. And here is where we're getting into the things that I really wanted to talk about this video. So, taunts got fixed so that some of the weird things with taunting didn't happen anymore, and break free is more consistent. Increase the damage taken, reduction of battle spirit. The following passives and player abilities now grant hybrid stats to help improve their viability and accessibility to off-meta builds because we love them too. Agility now grants equal weapon and spell damage. So this is a medium armor passive, and we see and there's a couple of others down here. Concentration is a light armor. Dexterity is medium. Prodigy is light armor. So the light and medium armor passives now work for both your weapon and spell damage, which means that we can do some weirder and more interesting builds with wearing all light armor, but going for more stamina builds, sort of thing. This makes hybrids a little bit better, and I say a little bit because there's still a lot of problems with a lot of hybrid builds, but at least we're somewhere where, but at least this is another step forward. And so agility grants weapon and spell damage, balanced warrior grants armor and weapon and spell damage, instead of spell resist and weapon damage. Brutal Carnage now grants equal weapon and spell damage, so this and Savage Strength down here are werewolf things. Concentration now grants equal offensive penetration. That's interesting. Dexterity now increases the critical damage and healing done per piece worn up to 2% at final rank, rather than weapon critical, as Prodigy now grants weapon critical as well. That I don't know how I feel about that one, because that might actually make stamina DPS worse. Dawnbreaker now grants equal weapon and spell damage. Prodigy now grants equal crit chance. Savage Strength now grants weapon and spell damage. Scaled Armor now grants flat armor instead of spell resist. And Slayer now grants equal weapon and spell damage values. This is that Fighters Guild passive that gave you that currently gives bonus weapon damage based on the number of Fighters Guild abilities you have slotted. That now works as a Magicka build, which is interesting. I don't know that we ever actually want those on Magicka builds consistently, but hey, it's a thing now. I mean, if you're running like 1 or 2 Magicka damage build skills in your thing, it's at least a decent buff. Multiple issues where ability bar timers displayed incorrect durations, and synergies failed to be considered ability casts. Area of effects scripting for update 30 could hurt innocent targets. This is stealth stuff, so this is more PvP. Multiple heals based on damage over time were not considered healing over time, such as blood craze or structured entropy. That's interesting. Corrosive armor now gets a better pen check. Molten weapons now works better. Unnerving boneyard is now considered an AoE. Why was it not originally? That's weird. Calculation errors on Flame Scholar fixed. Yay. Shadow Cloak. This ability and Morph's protections could work even if the attacker had a detection potion active. Overload. Now breaks stealth. There is nothing sneaky about loving giant bolts of lightning. Dawn's Wrath. Backlash. 50% of the damage you deal from the target up to 20 to help make it more reliable in PvP. Now scales off your spell or weapon damage depending on the morph rather than magic or stamina. It now scales with both positive and negative bonuses rather than only negative ones. Haha, backlash, go boom. So they buffed backlash as a damage skill. Cool. Destruction, where both morphs had the scaling coefficients with less significant figures than intended. Ooh, that's cool. No longer increases the damage done based on your current Magicka, but instead increases the damage scaling of the execute multiplier. It should attain roughly the overall maximum power, but with far less micromanagement. Interesting. Accelerated growth now grants minor mention on 2 4-second proc. And Frozen Gate now lasts 15 seconds and can't be removed. Ancient Knowledge. Better discerns what is and isn't an AoE attack with bonus damage based on your staff type. Increase the bonus of both Inferno and Lightning staff types up to help better match the power of Twin Blade and Blunt. And now here's the weird one, and I still don't know how I feel about this. So Destructive Touch, this ability and its morphs now guarantee their respective element type status on hit, increased cost, increase the range to 15 meters, and Frost, and now here's the big thing. Frost Touch and Frost Reach now deal 80% more damage on its initial hit to make them equal to other ranged spammable damage, and give the love to those Frost DPS out there. This is not what I expected them to change. I expected them to mess with Elemental Ring. I didn't expect them to use Destructive Touch. Because Frost Touch and Frost Reach are now this super high initial damage burst. That then lead into a small dot. Which, I don't know that that's going to be used as a spammable, but I do know that it makes it better than Degen in Frost builds now. If nothing else, it gives us another dot, and the fact that the primary Frost build is almost certainly Warden means that having more dots is good because we can we have another dot to throw into our dynamic rotation on a Warden. Destructive Clench is changed, so it remains tank focus rather than DPS, has received a cost reduction, and it also applies Major Maim for 5 seconds. So Clench is now a shorter ranged range taunt that applies Major Maim. So we've got another debuff on it. And the other thing worth noting is that Destructive Touch now guarantees the respective element type. That's pretty darn big. That means that for... One of the things I mentioned in the Frostbite video is how hard it can be to get the that brittle going. Destructive Touch guarantees that brittle for a Frostbite build, which is cool. This, I don't know how much this is actually going to change, but it is not the change I was expecting, and I kind of like that. I like that this is the way that they went with it, instead of some of the other things that I was thinking they were going to do. Elemental Force now probably states that it affects all status effect chances. Force Shock can now once again be reflected. Wall of Elements, Wall of Fire got fixed. Elemental Susceptibility now persists indefinitely until the target leaves combat or dies. That's hilarious. Infinite Breach. That's fun. Morph now heals up to 33% of the damage done per hit, rather than up to 63% of the final hit's damage done. That's slightly more healing effectiveness and more responsive. So, Bloodthirst now heals every tick instead of healing a bunch at the end. Absorb is now slightly better. Essence Drain is now slightly better. Healing Springs is now slightly better. Life Giver is no longer broken. Here's the other really interesting skill that they change. So first off, Berserker Strike got fixed. And now we have Cleave. So this is the skill I thought they were going to play with. Because this skill was kind of in a weird spot. Cleave and Carve were kind of left... Carve has been kind of left in the dirt by Brawler. However, this change, Carve now and Cleave now apply a damage shield on you when cast equal to the scaling coefficients of the initial hit. Does not grant a shield based on damage done. Increased the cost and adjusted the area of all versions to a 300 degree arc within a 5 meter rather than 140 with a 7 meter. To make it easier to tell where it's landing. So it's a wider arc, but it doesn't go as far. And Brawler increases the base size of this morph's damage shield by approximately 7%. And Carve, the bleed from this morph now stacks up to 3 times Blood for the Blood God. This is good! So what this does is that this gives us a way to have a very sticky character that's dealing a lot of melee damage. Because even if we don't take Brawler, which up until now was the clear and obvious choice, we can run Carve, get a bleed that stacks 3 times, and just go to town on our enemies. And still get that little bit of a damage shield to help with sticking in. Instead of just always going Brawler, because Brawler is just always better. Harness Magicka got adjusted. Soul Lock now procs on any killing blow, which is nice. Drain now heals for more. Morphs now rank up what they do, so Exhilarating Drain gives additional ultimate, and Drain Vigor now grants more missing stamina, now restores more stamina. Expert Hunter got the PvP ability of it got changed. So it now only highlights player vampires and werewolves rather than any undead, Daedra, or werewolf creature. And Skilled Tracker now increases the damage of your Fighter's Guild abilities by 10%, and an additional 10% against werewolves and vampires, rather than increasing your damage done by 20% against any undead, Daedra, or werewolf. This means that that as PvP people, you still have that evil smiting ability in Dawnbreaker, Trap, and Shards if you're running Shards. But you don't have that in PvE anymore. But you still have a flat 10% increase, which isn't terrible. And Trap Beast, now it lasts 15 seconds after it's deployed, rather than a solid minute. That... I don't know why this took so long. Fire Rune now also lasts 15 rather than 30 seconds. Which is fair. Mage Light is now better. Deliberation got changed to be really interesting. So it no longer grants major protection while channeling or casting a Psijic Order ability, and now grants a unique 30% damage mitigation. So this is now insanely strong. It's an extra 30% damage mitigation on top of everything else you have. Crushing Weapon now applies Major Breach. That's kind of cool. Inner Fire will now only apply the unique visuals and successfully applied. Inner Fire and Rage replacing an extra negative effect on targets. Inner Beast demotes damage taken bonus on the target to 12% at base, up from 2%. To better enable the very few bruiser tanks out there that were utilizing this skill. Okay. Assault. Bomber build change. Support. Revealing flare change. New champion points. Wind Chaser. For movement speed and sprinting. Increase the movement speed by 2% when you kill an enemy with Major Expedition. You gain Major Expedition, so you can go Neum. Refreshing Stride, you gain 100 health and Magicka per stage while sprinting. Magicka Recovery while sprinting. That could be kind of fun in PvP. Just run away and suddenly have a ton of health regen. Survivor's Spite subconstellation, pushing back and fighting. Sustained by suffering, increase health, Magicka, and stamina recovery by 30 per stage while under a negative effect. 5 stages, 10 points per stage. Not terrible. Might be worth a slotted star. Reduce your damage taken by 1% per negative effect on you up to a max of 20%. That could be fun on tanks as well. Minor protection for 3 seconds after being stunned or feared. That feels more PvP than PvE to me. Walking Fortress, focus on block and damage shields. Block mitigation by 4% per stage, but lowers movement speed by 16% at all stages. So you move slower, but you can block more damage. That, I don't know if that's good or not. It might be. It's probably worth playing with. Ward Master reduces damage taken by 2% while blocking with a damage shield active. Kinda cool. This is probably really good on Dragon Knight tanks because Igneous Shield is basically always active. Soothing Shield, when you successfully block an attack, you have 15% chance to restore health per stage. Ironclad has been renamed Fortified. And under Warfare, we have the Ironclad star back from where it used to be. It is now a slottable star, reducing damage taken from direct damage attacks by 2% per stage. Okay. Several items to be more performant on the server. These can now be used in campaign. This list can now be used in campaigns that do not allow item set procs. Okay. Cool. Perfected item set pieces were not showing active bonuses. Frenzy Momentum is now working better. Prismatic Weapon, this is interesting. Now deals damage equal to the Absorbent chance. This is the other thing that got mentioned in the teaser that we talked about last night. So this is more general gear resources back rather than deal damage to a single thing. Pelinal's Aptitude has been completely reworked. It is now called Pelinal's Wrath. Grants a damage shield based on your weapon and spell damage, and a stack of Wrath of Whitestrake for 10 seconds whenever you kill an enemy. Wrath of Whitestrake grants up to 100 weapon and spell damage per stack, but causes you to take 1% of your maximum health as Oblivion damage every second per stack, up to 10 stacks maximum. The 2 through 4 piece are now weapon and spell damage, offensive pen, and weapon and spell damage. and it no longer causes them to be the highest of the two values. This is a cool set, and I am 100% wanting to mess around with it, because it seems like a lot of fun to run around nuking things with this and a Ring of the Pale Order on. You kill things, you take sections of your health as oblivion damage, you continue to kill things, you continue to take damage, and you continue to get better. This is now a 5-piece version of Thracian Stranglers, and I love it. It's so stupid, and I love that this is a thing now. It's great. I 100% want to play with it. I don't think it's actually good, but it's so fun. Couple of fixes: Auroran's Thunder, Reaper, Pestilent Host can now stack between multiple wearers. Pillar of Nirn can now be blocked. Sunderflame has a cooldown. Unleash Terror is now properly labeled as a proc and has a 2-second delay before it deals damage. And Viper Sting now has a 1-second delay and ticks 4 times, but has a total damage over time duration remaining. And I skipped one here. That's because this is going to need to be talked about. So first and foremost, we're going to start with the second bullet point here. Crusader now has weapon and spell damage as 2, 3, and 4. So it is a lot of weapon and spell damage. And the set now grants you a damage shield based on your weapon and spell damage for 6 seconds, and creates an area of effect beneath you for 10 seconds when you deal direct damage with a blink, charge, leap, teleport, or pull. This has been pretty common recently, and I don't know how to feel about that, but I'm not going to complain about an interesting way to proc sets that if it's going to give us more sets like this version of Crusader. So, first off, you gain a nice damage shield for 6 seconds, and for the next 10 seconds, every 2 seconds, anyone standing in that area, you or any group member in that area, gain minor courage for 12 seconds. This effect can occur once every 20 seconds. So it's got a 50% cooldown, but as like a fun little burst set, or like a early buff set, or just as something new and interesting to run, Crusader might be good. Why did I open ESO sets? I want ESO hub. Here we go. Assuming it loads. And it no longer increases your dodge chance bonus on roll dodge. I do like that they're doing this. I like that they're going back and looking at sets that no one is trying to mess with and saying, how can we make this more interesting to play with? I think they've done a really good job with these sets here. Perennial's Aptitude the new Perennial's Wrath seems really fun. The new Crusader seems awesome and maybe actually good. I don't know. Nightmare had a bug fix. Kragath's is now more accurate. This no longer spawns a Spirit Bear pet and now a Visual Bear to maul. Celestrix is now finally a proc set. Stormfist's effect can now be dispelled. Veladrith spores no longer explode and instead continue to travel. That's nice. That means that you can deal even more damage with Veladrith than you already could. Pearls is working better, is now only proccing off of healing instead of damage abilities that healed you when they deal damage. So Scythe no longer works to trigger it, and similar things also work for that. So it was balanced around frequently having to cast healing abilities, and this occurrence works around that requirement, causing it to be significantly stronger than intended in some cases. Nikolaus's heavy armor. This is one of the other sets. These two are the other sets that they talked about. Also, this is in the complete wrong spot, because this is a dungeon set. This is a dungeon set, guys. It's not... Nikolaus isn't... Right? Yeah, Nikolaus's heavy armor drops from Blessed Crucible. I'm not crazy. This is in the wrong spot. So yeah, Nikolaus's resolve for 5 seconds when you successfully block, which after 8 stacks you consume them and completely avoid the next direct damage attack made against you. So this is a good survivability set. It's a good survivability set, and I'm gonna kind of leave it there. Synthesis Touch now grants movement speed for 30 seconds whenever you kill an enemy, up to 20 times. And grants invisibility for 3 seconds after activating. Is it up to 20 times per equip? Or is it 5% movement speed for 30 seconds, stacking up to 20 times? But it dropped Major Berserk on Blade of Woe. And it now grants max stam, Magicka, and weapon and spell damage rather than max health, and crit chance. Stygian is now hybrid stats. Its 4-piece bonus is now offensive pen. 5-piece now requires you to be in combat to proc. What does Stygian do? I know this is one of the Cold Harbor overlands. So it's now weapon and spell damage, also penetration. While in combat, when you leave sneaking and invisibility, your spell damage is increased by 367. Probably going to now be spell and weapon damage. Yeah, so its spell and weapon damage are increased by 369. So you can drop out of sneak and get this massive buff. Savara's skills can now be properly blocked for the initial hit. And Twin Sisters, where the damage over time ability could be dodged or blocked, so that's not supposed to happen apparently. Galarian's Revenge is now properly labeled Merited Service and Powerful Assault. They finally fixed Powerful Assault. Go ram it took way too long, but I'm glad it happened. Fixed an issue where these sets did not properly follow their intended sorting behavior. It will now prioritize nearby players to the wearer of the set that do not have the effect active. Vice Cannon of Venom dot for this set can now stack for multiple users. Kind's Wind a bug got fixed. Roar of Alkosh. Armor reduction cap to 6,000 up from 3,000. Perhaps damage dealers will finally wear it, but probably not. Nope! That's never happening. Okay, never say never. But, so Roar of Alkosh is this set. You see it on tanks. Hey, look. Because what it does is activating a synergy sends out a shockwave, dealing a burst of damage and additional damage, and reduces the physical and spell resist of any enemy's hit by the amount of your weapon damage for the duration, currently up to a max of 3,000, though it is now going up to a max of 6,000, which on a damage dealer is possible, and that means on a damage dealer, Roar of Alkosh will outdo the new Crimson Oath's Rive. So, because this is a flat 3,541. Whereas this could go up to 6,000. So if you need that extra pen, putting Roar on a damage dealer might not be a terrible idea. But then you have to have a damage dealer that's consistently being able to grab 3 synergies every 2 synergies every 20 seconds, roughly. Soulzon's had a bug fix. And Twilight Remedy, where it can no longer apply to yourself if you activate your own synergy. Because Unnerving Boneyard, Lady Thorn, and Blood Altar can all be activated by you, which means you could Twilight Remedy and lay that down and get that massive heal over time for yourself. The rest of this is smaller fixes to other stuff. But I think that's everything that fits into my purview on this channel. I am excited about what they did with Nikolaus, Sithis' Touch, Crusader, and Pelennial's Aptitude, and I severely hope that they begin to do that sort of thing more and more, to try and make more sets, either viable or at least interesting and fun. Because I think that will help the overall health of the game. All in all, I think this is a very good change. I do like this patch. I like a lot of these changes. The biggest thing I'm worried about is Dexterity. Because I don't know if most stamina builds are going to feel like they have enough crit once they lose that 2% per piece of medium armor that they're wearing. And we might have more people wearing light armor pieces. Even on stamina characters. Now, I don't actually know that these are going to be enough to shift the normal meta, but this definitely helps a lot of stranger off-meta builds to do strange off-meta things, and that's always fun. The changes to Destructive Touch, I'm gonna have to go mess with them and see how I feel. I really like how this looks. I don't know if it's going to be as good as it looks like, but I really like how the Cleave change is looking. Other than that, I think that's all that I have for this video. Thank you all for watching, I hope to see you next time, and until then, good luck, stay safe, and don't die.